Hello, thank you for watching this video. So on this video I'll be doing question 1 of May-June 2022 question paper mathematics paper 1, and this I will be solving some equations here. It's going to be fun, so let's get moving. So 1.1, solve for x. So 1.1, solve for x. So we are given 3 quadratic equations here. So they want us to solve them. So let's get moving. So 1.1.1, we are given x squared plus 2x minus 15 is equal to 0. So you're given this. So they're asking you to solve for x. So what you should do, you can use the quadratic equation, quadratic formula to solve this thing. Or you can factorize this thing as we would do. So what are the factors of x squared? It's x and x. What are the factors of 15? It's 1, 3, 5, and 15. So you can say we have 3 here, we have 5 here. And then x times x gives you x squared. This times this gives you minus 15. So when you cross multiply the two, they should give you what's the middle term here. So when you cross multiply this and that, they should give you that, right? So what do we say? We say, okay, this times this, we have 3x. This times this, we have 5x. What do we want to get? We want to get plus 2. So which means we should have plus 5 here and minus 3 here, minus 3x. Then that will tell us that we have here plus 5 and minus 3. Then these are your factors. So the factors are x minus 3 and x plus 5 is equal to 0. So if you have two things multiplying each other and the answer is 0, which means one of them is 0. So you have x times y equal to 0, but this tells you that x is equal to 0 or y is equal to 0. So if you have two of these brackets multiplying each other and the answer is 0, ignore this. I've made the point that I wanted to make. So if you have, so we go from here, go down here. So if you have this times that and the answer is 0, so the possibilities are x minus 3 is equal to 0 or x plus 5 is equal to 0. That will tell you that your x is equal to 3 or your x is equal to minus 5. So x is an element of 3 and minus 5. So that's your 1.1. So let's go to 1.1.2. 1.1.2. So at 1.1.2, we are given this equation. 5x squared minus x minus 9 is equal to 0. So we're done with this one. So we're solving for x here as well. And you are told there's also a note on the side next to this. Leave your answer correct to 2 decimal places. Leave your answer correct to 2 decimal places. So this, which would mean that this does not have very nice solutions. So if that's the case, let's use the quadratic equation to solve this, or quadratic formula. So you know the quadratic formula is x is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of what? B squared minus 4ac, or 2a. This is the quadratic equation. So, as you might know, as you know actually, you should know this, that it is A, B, and C on this quadratic equation. Your A is the coefficient of x squared, which is 5, and B is the coefficient of x, which is -1, and C is the constant, which is called -9. So x is equal to negative b. What is your b? It's -1 plus or minus the square root of b squared. What is your b squared? Which is -1 all squared minus 4a. What is your a? Is 5, right? And your c is called -9. All divided by what? By 2a. What is your a? Your a is 5. Punch this in a calculator, and what do you get? You get that x is equal to, this is 1 plus or minus the square root of what? It's 1 squared minus 4 times 5 times this. So what is minus 4 times 5? That's minus 20. Minus 20 times minus 9. That's minus 180. So that's plus 180. So here we have 1 plus 180 all over 10. So your x is equal to 1 plus or minus square root of 181 all over 10. So x is equal to 1 plus square root of 181 over 10, or x is equal to 1 minus square root of 181 all over 10. So x is equal to, you punch this in a calculator, or x is equal to, you punch the answer of this in a calculator. So let's do that. So punch this in a calculator or punch that in a calculator. So what you say 1 plus square root 181 over 10, which is equal to 1.45. It's 1.45, or minus, punch this one. So it's minus 1.25. So your x is an element of what? Of 1.45 minus 1.25. So this is the solutions. So you're done with this one. Now we move to where? To 1.1.3. Still solving for x. So 1.1.3 is a quadratic inequality, right? So let's get moving. So we say 1.1.3 is a quadratic inequality. What is it? You are given x squared to be less or equal to 3x, right? So what do you do? First transpose this to the left. So what do we have? We have x squared minus 3x less or equal to 0. Next point, you find the critical values, right? So say x squared minus 3x, you equate this to 0. So you can use the quadratic equation, quadratic formula to find the solutions, or you can factorize it. So the quadratic formula is always there to help you if you are not sure about your factorization. So we're going to factorize because we think we are sure. So we have x squared, x as our common factor, So inside the bracket, okay. So what we do, we take out x as a common factor because we have x this side, we have x that side. So we have x, so here we're left with x minus 3 is equal to 0. So your 1.1.1 situation, you have this times this equal to 0, which means either this part is 0 or this part is 0 in order to achieve that. So we have our x is 0 or with our x minus 3 equal to 0, which would imply that x is equal to 3. Right? Those are our critical points. So what do we do next? So we try to draw a rough sketch of this situation here, or this one if you want, but I like using this one because this one is much simpler. It's a straightforward quadratic function. So I'll say, okay, with this situation here, my intercepts is 0 and 3, so I have 0 here, I have 3 here. So I can just plot it like something like this. So it's 0 here and it's 3 here. Right? So we say y is equal to x equal to 0 here, and y is equal to 0 here. So we say we want this situation, this function of ours, where it is less or equal to 0. Where is it less or equal to 0? What does less or equal to 0 mean? Less or equal to 0 means our graph is negative. So where is our graph negative? Or 0 or negative. So it's here. We want where our graph is here. Non-positive. So we want where our graph is non-positive, which is less or equal to 0. So our graph is non-positive here, less or equal to 0. So what are the corresponding x values for this interval here, where it is less or equal to 0? So our interval starts here to this point here, because these are the x values here, where this thing is negative. So your thing would be negative for x is an element of 0. Sorry, your thing or your graph will be negative, will be non-positive for x. Okay. So what this tells you, it says find the values of x for which this graph is non-positive, which is less or equal to 0. Non-positive. That's what they're saying. Non-positive means less or equal to 0. So our graph is non-positive or less or equal to 0 from 0 to 3. So the x values that for which this equation will be satisfied is when your x is between 0 and 3. So your x should be an element of this interval here, this closed interval, 0 to 3. Or one would say x is less or equal to 3 or greater or equal to 0. So this is the solution, this area here. This is how you do this thing. And you go to the next question. So the next question is 1.2. I'm going to clean the board, and then you do 1.2. So now we're doing 1.2. 1.2. You are given this equation here at 1.2, and at 1.2.1 they're asking you to solve for a from this equation. So you want you to solve for a from this equation. 64 over a is equal to 16. They want to solve for a. So you know that your a should not be equal to 0 because this won't be a very nice equation. So your a must not be equal to 0. First thing, restrictions are very important. So what you do, you multiply it throughout by a. So multiplied by a here, multiplied by a here, and multiplied by a there. So we have a times a plus 64 times a over a is equal to 16 times a. So a times a, we have a squared plus this and that goes away. We're left with 64, which is equal to 16. 16a. What do? Transfer the 16 to the side. You have a squared minus 16a plus 64 is equal to 0. Right? Then you factorize this. You quickly discover that when you factorize this, you have your a, you have your a here, you have 8 and 8, so it's minus and minus. Therefore, your a is equal to 8. Our a is equal to 8. We're done with this one. Now we'll go to 1.2. So, they are saying solve for x. Solve for x on this equation here. 2 raised x plus 2 raised 6 minus x is equal to 16. What do they want you to do? They want you to solve for x. So what do we do? So the question says, hence solve for x from this equation. So let's look at this. So we have 2 raised x plus 2 raised 6 times 2 raised negative x is equal to 16. Right? Then let's simplify this. So you have 2 raised x plus 2 raised 6, which is 64. 2 raised 6 is 64. Divided by 2 raised x. So you take this, put it there, move it down. 2 raised x is equal to 16. So if you look at this equation here and that equation here, this one resembles that one. They look similar. Look at this part. 2 raised x. Is this 2 raised x here? You have 64. Here's 64 here. You have your a. Here's your a there. Then you have 16. So this equation that we have here resembles the first one that we were given. They are exactly the same. They look exactly the same. But except that instead of a, they replaced it with 2 raised x. That's the only thing they did. You had a there. The only thing that you have here is 2 raised x. Otherwise, it's the exact same equation. Plus 64 over 2 raised x is equal to 16. So, if we can substitute a here, it will look exactly like that one. So now, because you have solved for a and find that it's 8, so your 2 raised, you will be solving for 2 raised x on this one. So your 2 raised x is equal to what? The 2 raised x will be equal to 8. Because that a, which is this, is your 2 raised x in this equation, which is that. So, which is equal to 2 raised 3. Therefore, your x is equal to 3. Because if you have 2 raised x equal to 2 raised 3, the only way these will be equal, being equal in maths means the same. The only way these two will be the same is if they have the same exponent there, which is 3. And you're done with this one. You can go to 1.3. I'll clean the board and you go to 1.3. 1.3. Without using a calculator, calculate the value of this thing here. Okay. I'll cut this thing here. So, 1.3. Okay. So, 1.3 read as follows. without using a calculator, calculate the value of this thing. So they want you to find the value of this thing without using a calculator. So what do we do? So when you are given something like this, you shouldn't be scared of the square root. Just look at the exponents inside, because what you're going to be dealing with are the exponents that are inside. So you'll be simplifying this, what is under the square root. So the square root, we'll deal with it at the end. Just deal with what is inside. So if you're given a situation like this, what you should want to do first is to look at one that have the lowest power, which is this one. Is this 2 raised 998? This is the lowest power. So what you should try to do, you should try to break up these guys such that they also, such that this part is, this lowest power is also visible. So let's do this. So what you do, you say, okay, I'm given this. So I'll say this should be equal to what? 2 raised 1002. So 1002 is equal to 998, right? Plus 4 units. And then if you add that, it should give you this thing. Plus 2 raised 998 plus 8 units. This, if you punch it in your calculator, should give you that. All divided by 17 times 2 raised 998. This is what I meant. So the first step is to identify the lowest power and break everything else such that the lowest power is visible. Right? So, what do we do next? We write the root. The root you just cite it. What we'll do, we'll deal with what is under the root. We might use the root at the very end. Okay. So, now, you know when you have the situation, which means you can break it down and say it's 2 raised 998 times 2 raised 4, right? Plus 2 raised 998 times 2 raised 8. This is 9, this is 9, this is 8. All divided by what? All divided by 17 times 2 raised 998. So what do? We say, okay, we have 2 raised 998. Inside we're left with what? 1 times 2 raised 4 plus 1 times 2 raised 8. All divided by what? All divided by 17 times 2 raised what? Raised 998. Close that bracket. Then you will realize that this guy and that guy cancel out. What are you left with? Left with this times 2 raised 4. You have 2 raised 4 plus 2 raised what? 8. All divided by 17. Right? Then the next thing you evaluate these guys here. So you have 2 raised 4, which is 16, plus 2 raised 8, which is 256, all divided by 17. And this 6 top of that, so this is 272 over 17. What do we have? We have 272 over 17 is 16, and the square root of 16 is 4. And you're done with this thing. So you just follow the rules. Follow the rules, follow the rules. And that's it. And then we go to 1.4, which is solve for x and y simultaneously. Okay, so now 1.4. Solve for x and y simultaneously from the equations below. So they want us to solve x and y simultaneously from these equations here. So what do? We first look for the equation that is simpler, right? From this, we can say that x is not allowed to be 0 because of that situation there. So what I always do, I always look for the simpler equation, the one that I'm not scared of, and try to solve for x and y, make it the subset of the formula. So the equation that I'm not scared of is this one here, right? So this equation is 2x minus y is equal to 2. So on this equation, I have to make x and or y the substitute of the formula from this first equation. So it will be easy to make y the substitute of the formula by transposing to that side and transposing 2 to this side. So I'm going to transpose y to that side, transpose 2 to this side. So I will have my 2x minus 2 is equal to y. Once you get this from this equation, you substitute it from the second one, which is where you see a y, substitute this thing here. That's 2x minus 2. So you've already stated the restriction that your x is not allowed to be 0. So what do? So now we have 1 over x minus 3y. What is your y? Your y is 2x minus 2 is equal to 1. Then what do? You say, okay, 1 over x minus 3, this times that's 6x, this times that, plus 6 is equal to 1. Then what do? You multiply by this x throughout. So you have your situation of 1 over x times x minus 6x times x plus what? 6 times x is equal to 1 times x. So you multiply by x throughout this thing. What do you have? You have that and that going away. You have 1 minus 6x squared, right? Plus 6x, which is this equation here, is equal to x on that side. So we transpose these guys to that side. We have 0 is equal to 6x squared minus 6x plus x minus 1. Then what do? We simplify. So we have 0 is equal to 6x squared minus 6x, this and that, these are like terms. So we have minus 5x minus 1 equal to 0. So can factorize this thing. We've been factorizing this way. So what are the factors of 6x? 6x squared is 2x and 3x. What are the factors of this guy? It's 1 and 1. So the bigger cross multiplication will take the sign of the middle term. What do we have? Say this times that. You have 3x, this time this 2x. So this should be positive. This should be negative, the sign of the middle term. This should be positive. This time that's minus 3x. This time that's 2x. When we add them, they're giving minus x. So these are not our factors. Okay, this continuation, or you can use the quadratic formula from there. So what do? We say, okay, what are the possible values? It can be 6x and x, 1 and 1. Then you have this time this is 6x, so it should be negative. This one should be that sign, and this should be positive. This time that is minus 6x. This time that should be x. When you add them, it's minus 5x. So these are your factors. So 0 is equal to 6x plus 1 times x minus 1. So the values of x, which if you multiply these two and the answer is 0, which means 6x plus 1 is equal to 0, or x minus 1 is equal to 0. That would imply that your x is equal to minus 1 over 6, or your x equal to 1. So now, you have your x values, now you want the y values. So to find the y values, you substitute them on this equation here. So y is equal to 2 times x, which is minus 1 over 6, minus 2, or y is equal to 2 times 1 minus 2, which is y is equal to 0, this one. So you have 1 and 0 going together here, right? Or you have this times this with y is equal to minus 1 over 3 minus 2. What is it going to be? It's going to be y is equal to all over 3 minus 1 minus 6, which is equal to minus 7 over 3. So we have the coordinates as minus 1 over 6 and minus 7 over 3. That's it. So these are the y values, which is this minus 7 over 3 and this 0 here. So I want to believe that we are done with this question 1, and I hope you found this video helpful. Thank you.